Happy Friday, Ron. How are you, sir?
I'm great, David. Happy Friday. How are you?
Doing well. Happy hour to you. I think happy hour feels a little more right on a Friday than it does on a Thursday, right?
Better than on a Tuesday morning.
Well, cheers to you, sir.
Thank you. Cheers to you.
There we go.
Cheers.
All right. So typically we go live on Thursdays, but we had some tech issues. My internet was not behaving itself, so we punted to today. And we've got a handful of topics. We've got some meaty topics, a lot of data heavy topics this week. Ron, as always, does his homework, his research, and brings sometimes goofy topics, sometimes fun topics. And this week, I think they're very data driven. So lots of charts to go over. Interesting week in the mortgage world. We hit the lowest rates in about 3 years. So we've got some, we're not, I don't think we're talking about rates so much today, but we got a lot of topics that we're talking about. And Ron, you are finally back from your your world tour.
I am back from my world tour, and I'm happy to be here. You know, I got here just in time, David, because today is going to be the last cold day of the year. It's in the 60s. Next, by the weekend, it'll be in the mid 80s, and next week it'll be in the mid 90s. It may actually hit 100 next week.
Oh my gosh. Ron's in Phoenix. I'm out on the East Coast in Charlotte, and today is a glorious day as far as weather goes. Got some yard work prepared for this weekend. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about our topics this week, what we're going to be covering. First, I've got a from the gut. And Ron said something. We were on a call yesterday, and he just got back from a cruise, and he had a Yellow Pages. So I'm going to use Yellow Pages as my theme for my from the gut this week. And then we're going data heavy with the next topic, and we've got 3 main topics, and then we've got a handful of rapid fire topics. So McKenna, let's move to the first topic that we're going to be covering.
Hey, Dave, can I kind of frame these topics, because most of them fall in the same kind of bucket. Is that okay?
Please.
So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is we're going to look at data, and we're going to show how data is in conflict with the current consumer vibe. And so with each one, we're going to go, well, here's kind of what consumers are feeling, but here's what the data is showing. And then we're going to try to figure out what's causing the delta, and then how do we solve it? And so each topic is that way. So this is a really interesting one to start with. We're going to talk about sales last month that were dreadfully down, and try to figure out what's going on with that. We're going to just go over a few topics from the ICE's Mortgage Monitor. You know, that's a great 40-page, 50-page report. We're just going to extract 3 points out of it that have to do a little bit with interest rate, but mostly with what type of opportunities are in the market. This is another of those vibe things. We're going to talk about current credit card balances, household debt, debt to income, and I promise you we're probably going to come to a different conclusion than you're getting in the news.
And then I think we've got 4 rapid fire topics. So without any further delay, let's jump into our first topic, which is my from the gut. So let's go. Alrighty, so this one hit me in a bit of a random way. Like I said just a few minutes ago, Ron just got back from his world tour. He was over in Europe. And how many cities or countries did you go to, Ron?
Maybe 8 countries.
Jeez. Right. So you were gone for a little while. You come home, and there's a Yellow Pages just sitting there in your mail. I don't know if you use a Yellow Pages or if you order it, but it was just there. I don't think you ordered it. And it kind of made me laugh, because the Yellow Pages feels like a fossil at this point, something that should have died with dial up internet. It got me thinking about something bigger because at the same time that everyone has gone all in on digital, there's been a bit of a quiet resurgence in something we all wrote off. Not yellow pages, but direct mail. Now, let's get this straight. I'm not saying the yellow pages or direct mail is the absolute best way to market or they're back. I'm not saying we're about to start flipping through these paper books to find plumbers again, but I am saying this: when everyone floods the same channel, the quiet channels start getting interesting again. Look at the data. It shows that direct mail has a response rate north of 15%. Just Googled that yesterday. Even prospect files were reported around 10%. Compare that to typical digital ad click through rates, which often sits well under 1%. And here's the other part: USPS still processed nearly 60 billion pieces of marketing mail in 2024. That's not nostalgia, that's scale. At the same time, digital ads cost are continuing to rise. CPMs, which stands for cost per mile and represents cost per 1,000 impressions, was up double digits year over year in most channels. So what does that mean? It's more competition, higher costs, less differentiation. So what happens? Digital has become crowded. Everyone's posting, everyone's boosting, everyone's running retargeting. And then someone sends a well designed targeted mail piece and it suddenly feels different. Not because it's something new, but because it's something rare, especially when it's done well. Marketing is a pendulum and it always has been. When everyone rushes in one direction, opportunity starts forming in the other. And I think this applies far beyond mail. We see it in business, we see it in social media, we see it in content. When everyone goes short form, long form stands out. When everyone is maybe loud, restraint can stand out. When everyone is chasing reach, intimacy can stand out. The yellow pages or direct mail isn't necessarily the point. It's more of a metaphor. It's something we all declare dead. It might just be something that we declare dead might just be today's opportunity. And that's a difference. Dead means it doesn't work. Underutilized means fewer people are competing there. And competition is what drives cost up and effectiveness down. And there's another layer here too. Physical marketing carries a different psychological weight to it. An email, think about it. An email can be deleted in a swipe or just go to junk mail or just be ignored. And a social media ad can be ignored in a half second or less. But something physical, again, especially when done well, you hold it, you flip it, you sometimes leave it on the counter. Even if you throw it away, it occupied probably your attention for longer than that digital ad did. And modern direct mail isn't old school spray and pray, it's targeted or can be. It can be trackable with QR codes and personalized URLs. Digital, think about them as digital bridges built into physical pieces. It's not offline versus online, it's integrated. And here's the deeper question: why does this cycle keep happening? Because people chase what's hot. And when something's hot, it becomes overcrowded. When it's overcrowded, it becomes expensive. When it becomes expensive, it becomes inefficient. And then someone quietly looks in the opposite direction, not because it's trendy, but because it's overlooked. And that's where leverage hides. The advantage usually lives when no one's looking. That doesn't mean you abandon digital. It doesn't mean that necessarily direct mail or physical marketing is better than digital. It just means expand your how you're thinking about marketing. Don't necessarily blindly follow the crowd. It means you don't do every silly TikTok dance that everyone else is doing. It means you ask, where is attention underpriced? Where is trust easier to learn or earn? Where is competition thinner? Because strategy isn't about being modern, it's about being effective. The yellow pages sitting in Ron's mailbox wasn't proof of a comeback, but it was a reminder. Just because something isn't fashionable doesn't mean it's useless. And just because everyone moved on doesn't mean you should too. Sometimes the smartest move isn't necessarily forward. Maybe it's sideways, or maybe it's even backward, but strategically. Because in business and marketing and honestly life, crowded rarely equals advantage. So maybe the question isn't what's new. Maybe it's what's overlooked, because that's usually where the opportunity lies. Here you go, Ron. Any thoughts?
I love it, David. Another great from the gut. I would add this is particularly apropos because of the upcoming trigger leads. For the most part being canceled, and so everybody's looking for new outlets for leads, and so this is even more germane than normal.
Yeah, and it sounded like I was kind of sounded like I was advocating 100% for direct mail. Um, while that's not necessarily true, it was just to kind of prove a larger point, that what's trendy, what's new, what's hot is maybe just think about it a little bit differently, and think about new strategies or old strategies, and not just following that crowd. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea, David.
All right, let's move into existing home sales. Lead the way with this, Ron.
Yeah, let's go through the charts and then let's get to the point, if that's possible.
Yeah, we've got 7 total, and let's explain these.
Yeah, and we'll go pretty quickly. So this is existing home sales. You can see that the dark blue is total, the light blue is single family, and the red is condos. You can see that existing home sales continue to fall, actually to a distressing level. Let's go to the next chart. And by the way, the bottom axis is the year, so 2010, 2011, 2012. The units on the left are in millions. So there you go. You can see home sales by region. This is an important one to pay attention to because 3 of these regions, or at least say 2.5 of these regions, had suffered significant weather last month. And so the drop in sales is 100% being assigned to the poor weather. But at least 1.5 of these regions did not, including the West, which we're going to get to, had unseasonably warm and dry weather, and yet they had the greatest drop in existing home sales. So we'll talk about that in a minute. This is just a seasonally adjusted rate for millions of homes and sales. You can see this kind of better demonstrates the fall in home sales last month. It's all showing on the far right. Perfect. This is months of supply. We were picking up supply at a pretty good rate early in the year, but now that is starting to weaken a little bit, and supply is now starting to drop a bit, as it would seasonally do. That's a whole bunch of colors there. This is a little bit loud. This is just the seasonality of median prices. And you can see where they peak in June and then they drop. It just happens to be that's the way it goes. Not a big chart, but I want to get to the next chart, I think, is where our meat and potatoes are. No, this is just condos. No big deal. Let's go to the last chart, McKenna. That'd be great. This is a chart I really want to focus on because, as I mentioned, existing home sales in the West were actually some of the weakest of any of the 4 regions in the country, even though they had the best weather. And so all the analysts are going, oh my gosh, the weather has caused this horrible drop in existing home sales. And the fact is, that's not really true at all. The truth is that consumer psychology, the vibe has changed because if you look at it, if you look at this, rates were the best that they've far better this year than last year. Supply was far better this year than last year. prices were nearly flat while wages had improved. In fact, ICE Mortgage Monitor, which we're going to talk in a minute, said affordability had reached a 4-year high, that we've had the best affordability in the past 4 years. It went on to say that in 15 markets in the United States, affordability is now better than pre-pandemic. And so, with all these positive tailwinds behind us, we still had a stinker of a month in home sales last year. And I don't think we can just simply go, gosh, the weather, because the West shows it had nothing to do with the weather. What it has to do with is consumers are confused and they're insecure and they're certainly uncertain, and they don't really have a great guide to help them figure out how to buy a house or not buy a house. So they're just sitting it out because it's got way too complicated and way too risky. And that's going to be it's going to be a recurring theme this whole podcast, Dave. We're going to keep talking about here's how consumers are feeling, but then we're going to try to argue the other side. But here's what the data shows, and the delta is our call to action to try to go educate potential home buyers on why now is really a great time to buy. Dave, how does this data strike you?
I had a question for you. You've got a good friend that is a realtor, one that I met at your house in California. But I know that you're connected with a lot of real estate agents. What is their mentality, and how is it different than loan officers' mentality around where we're at right now?
Well, one thing, real estate agents tend to be highly local because every single market, even a market 2 blocks from another market, is completely different. It is
Mm,
completely different. So that's the first thing. They're so sensitive to the micro market, and I don't think loan officers are that sensitive. And then what they
mm,
do, because they typically own a market, although that's starting to change as these mega agents now have, the market is the United States, but as these ones that are hyper local, they understand the conditions and they are better able to try to work through it because they're more micro than macro. Loan officers are more macro, and so they approach it a different way. Um, and what the thing too is, I think that real estate agents are much better at dealing with buyers' emotions because that's one of their primary roles. Is my job is to manage you, where loan officers come to it more as educators and data and information. And I think that, as loan officers, we can learn a little bit from real estate agents about how to actually help with the psychology of our clients, because that's where the deficit is today in people's ability to buy a home. It's in their own internal mindset, their psychology, and we're going to have to get a lot better at that.
yeah. Who do you think's been hit harder over the last, say, 2 years? Is it the loan officer community or the real estate agent community? My guess is real estate agent, just because there's far more of them.
Interestingly, I don't think so. I think it's the loan officer community because real estate agents don't give a bean about refinances, but
Mm,
refinances have been upwards of 75% of loan officers' business. And so when that went away, that
mm,
is a much mightier sword to fall.
right. um, okay, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's the point. That's a good start for our topics. Let's go to the next one, and we'll start talking about vibe versus reality and what we can do maybe to help, lead people to the dream, the American dream of home ownership, the wealth that it creates.
I thought you were going to go back through some of those slides.
No, I think we got it.
Okay, all right. Interest rates and refinance update.
Yeah, this is straight out of the mortgage ICE's mortgage monitor. We just pulled out three hopefully interesting data points. The first one, let's get to that's in the money. The first slide. This shows how many people are in the money at different interest rates. And so we can't really read it because it's super small. But let's just pretend at a 6.5% interest rate, I think it's 2.3 million people can benefit from a rate and term refinance. That's what that says. And so here's an interesting statistic from the ICE's mortgage monitor. When rates dipped down to 6.04% last week, or not a couple of weeks ago, 4.8 million borrowers were in the money, and that's the highest level we've had for borrowers in the money in 4 years. And one of the things that you see is as interest rates shift even an eighth of a point, it might add another 500,000, 750,000 people in the money. And the key lesson is here is you have to establish a strike rate with your borrower regardless of what the market's doing, is when it hits that strike rate, you got a lock because it could be fleeting. And the way it's gone the last few years, we touch it and it leaves, and we touch it and it leaves. We're having a little bit of a dip right now. I would argue that dip's not here to stay. It's not a one direction. We're going to bounce back. As a matter of fact, three of the voting Fed members, in the Fed minutes said they thought we should have started raising rates. And so who knows where rates are going to go. But when you get into where that target rate is, just lock, and you're going to be able to protect some of these clients. Let's look at the next slide.
Do you not think it's going to get into the fives?
Well, if you're a loan officer, aggressive with your pricing, aggressive with your comp and PEs, you're in the fives today.
Sure.
Do I think, though, the entire market's headed into the fives for a long term? No, I don't. I think we'll be lucky to stay in the low sixes throughout this year. Now, we may dip down, David. We might dip down. We might even get a little run where we dip down to 5 3/4 or 5 7/8. And I'm talking industry wide, not the low cost, not the outliers, but the entire market. But long term, we're going to struggle to stay above 6 for sure. All right, so this is interesting. This is just the line is delineates. The line delineates a 30-year fixed rate, and the blue little towers are the number of loans that are in the mortgage or in the money. So anything above the line could be easily refinanced. Things below the line, that would be more of a rate and term or a cash out or a life, some sort of life activity dominated to drive the rate. So you can see we're starting to get more refi opportunity. That's the only thing we're trying to show for. And in the money means that you could take out whatever your refinance is, you still had at least 20% equity after the refinance. And that you typically had to improve your interest rate by 75 basis points. That's what they define as in the money. And so we're getting more and more houses in the money, which is good news.
Where does that go back to? Gosh, is a bat. Oh, that's all just this year? Going back to no. March of 07.
It has to do with the actual vintage of the loan because it gives you their origination rates. And so the more recent loans have a higher origination rate, so there's more of them in the money. The loans through the 2020 and 2021 were low. That's where you see that huge valley. And those won't be in the money, but probably ever, we hope, because we have to have a really problem economy.
Gotcha.
Let's go to the next one. Now, this is a really, there was some interesting dates here. So here's the first thing. We talked about affordability. And David, I don't know if we really talked about this. We were doing some show prep the other day, but the average monthly payment is now $164, down $164 per month year over year, which is really, really good. Total actual mortgage payment to gross incomes for all home buyers or all homeowners is 27.8%, which is the most affordable it's been since early 2022. And as I mentioned, in 15 markets, affordability is now stronger than pre-pandemic. So we're having markets return to normality, which is great, and we're in pretty good shape. I like that.
There's a lot of how's the overall health of your average IMB right now because of this, as far as profitability and margins?
If I remember right, the IMBs made 17 basis points last quarter, or maybe it was 17 basis points, which is okay. You got a lot of problems here, David. Not only do you have price compression and competition, and you're still probably overstaffed, so you have too many expenses, but you're also having to start now investing into technology, which is completely eroding any profit you have. You're having to reinvest all those profits into long-term capital investments. And so it's still a really tricky business. However, you are starting to get the big companies that are creating scale, that are starting to create some sort of margin, especially when they start to leverage technology that they've already paid for. And as they reduce headcount, you're starting to see that the profitability is improving for the people in the large platforms.
How do you see do you see a lot of M&A activity for coming this year?
Yeah, last year was a record of M&A, and the year before was the previous record. And I think you're not going to see as many deals, but you're going to see some really surprising deals. I think we're going to have some more shocks to the system, and we'll see what it looks like. I think too that at some point, some owners are going to have fatigue, and at some point they're going to want to see how they can get out of the game. They've been in the game for 30, 40, 50 years, and they want to get through this downturn, but now it's starting to be a grind. You might look at what's their succession plan, what's their long term life planning going to look like. But we'll see. I mean, there's certainly, and the other thing is, I think the other thing is, David, the market, while it's been under stress, it now can be priced though, because it's pretty stable. So it's pretty easy to understand what a company's worth, what its assets are worth, what its volume is worth, because we're in a pretty stable environment. When it's unstable, it's really hard to acquire companies or to sell companies because it's hard to establish a price. Where now, at least that
Mm.
part shouldn't be so emotional.
Yeah. Do you see the gap between the haves and have-nots widening as far as, because there's been some major acquisitions in the last 2 years? Do you think that's just gonna over the next couple years or so, you're gonna see most of the smaller IMBs go away?
Yeah, it's going to be really hard for. How it works, David, I think you can divide IMBs into three buckets. They're, say, small, medium, and large. Small IMBs typically are very nichey,
Yeah.
and so they're mobile. They're nimble and they're nichey, and they're going to be okay because they're competitive. Nobody wants to compete with them. Nobody wants to compete necessarily doing doctor construction loans, or I mean, like, some things are just so nichey, right? And then the large companies just have massive economies of scale, and now they're buying sophisticated tunnel structures, whether it was Rocket that now has search, origination and servicing. You have United Wholesale Mortgage with Two Harbors. You have, and the most recent one. So I think what you're going to I think that those big companies are going to have an unfair advantage. And so if you're in the middle, it's the middle IMBs that you got to figure out, what's my competitive advantage? What's my value proposition to my employees, to the consumer? Why do I exist? And if I close tomorrow, would anybody care? And that's a really tough place to be. I think that's where it's a really tough place to live right now.
Where would you what does volume look like for one of those middle companies? Anywhere between 1 to 3 billion?
1 to 4 billion, one to
One
four
to
billion
four.
in your size. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And those what's interesting is sometimes those are the hardest ones to do an M&A on,
Mm.
because not everybody can swallow a $4 billion company, absorb them into their platform without having some disruption. Smaller companies are easy to absorb, but those mid-sized companies can be kind of a trick.
Mm. Gotcha. Sorry, I've asked
Yeah,
some kind of random questions, not super correlating to our main topic here.
that's right. Do we have one more slide there, which we don't have to cover, but we might have had a slide on equity? Let's see. Well, we do here. Good. So this is just a couple points here. I think we want to pay attention to. Mortgage debt rose a little bit, as you can see that black line, and it's up 4%. It's up to 14.8 trillion dollars, which isn't necessarily bad. Um, Mortgage balance is now for the entire market at 46.6%. So the entire market has greater than 50% equity. That's that blue shade. The blue shade is bigger than the gray shade. And in total, homeowners have some 16 or almost $17 trillion in equity. Of that, we would define 11 trillion of that as being tappable equity, meaning that they could take out 11 trillion and still leave 20% equity in their house. So there's a whole bunch of asset value in homes today. It's an incredible amount. All
Shouldn't
very
those
positive.
differences, this is going to be, I think this is going to be a bit of a dumb question. Shouldn't those differences just kind of look the same over time if you look over the last 100 years or 50 years maybe? Isn't it just more of a circle of life, as many people as we have in the country that own a home and then they die and uh, they give it to their kids and then it's just rinse and repeat. Shouldn't it be kind of mostly the same?
Well, if you look at the chart, David, if you look at the blue, which is the equity, outstanding equity, it's not the same at all. right?
Right.
And
I think
and
that's what
and
I'm asking. So why isn't it? Because I would think that just, it's just the circle of life and that, you buy, you give it to your kids, they buy, you give it to your kids and so on.
you have a few factors here that are in play. First, people have owned their home for the longest duration in history, and just think about how many baby boomers we have. So yeah, where it used to be, people moved every 5 years, and people would downsize as they got to their 50s and 60s. Today, that's not the case. They're aging in place, and so they're not selling their home, and so that's why 40% of the homes in the United States are owned free and clear. That is unbelievable, right? And that's really distorting it. But and so that's not a normal thing. People are living longer, they're staying in their house longer, and that's what's really helping drive this added equity. But the other thing that you have, David, is you also have had record returns on the stock market. So people are wealthier than ever, and they've
Mm,
been able to pay down their mortgage or pay off their mortgage if they wanted to. And so that's a second factor that's not cyclical. That doesn't have to do with it doesn't happen every 40 years. We just had a booming stock market. The other thing is we've had a pretty good economy driving wages, which is another factor on whether people make prepayments into their mortgage, right? Whether they pay an extra $100 a month or extra payment a year, whatever they happen to do. All those factors had led to this position we're in right now, which is an unbelievable thing, and it's also causing the market to behave in ways we've never seen it behave before. Whether that gives us constrained inventory, we're not having the migration that we typically do. We don't have opportunities for first-time home buyers. But we're about to face the greatest wealth transfer in human history. Whatever you're going to argue it's going to be, it's unbelievable how much it's going to be. And what happens though, it's not a straight line. If your parents have $1 million and they die, it doesn't mean you get $1 million. First, it's probably going to be divided by more people in your family. It's going to be taxed. There's going to be expenses against it, and the trickle down is going to be less than what it was when I left the nest. So it doesn't quite flow exactly like that, but it is interesting. It is really interesting.
yep. We're way over on that one. Let's talk about credit card balances.
Yeah, that's going to almost turn into a rant. I'll try to control myself. Do we have a? So here's the narrative, and let me just go to the narrative because this is the vibe versus reality. The headline is essentially the sky is falling. Credit card debt is the highest it's ever been. We now have credit card total at $1.33 trillion. Oh my God, the sky is falling. This is evidence about the horrible shape consumers are in, and my oh my. And we've all heard it a ton of times. And you hear that, and the thing that immediately clicks in your mind is you go, oh my gosh, this is a tough time. I got to bunker in. There's no way in the world I could possibly buy a house. Look at all this debt. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. I need to just put all my acorns and bury them in the backyard and just hold still because that's what I hear every day. But what we're going to see, David, is that the data is totally different. That is such a false headline. And so let's look through some of these slides. And we're using a couple of, there's a few reports of this. These are the ones from National Association of Home Building. It's showing outside consumer credit by quarter. This chart makes it look like it's just taking off like mad over the last 20 years. So there you go. Let's go to the next chart. Same thing, now student loan credit by quarter. Of course, when you make money free, people want all of they can get. When students didn't have to make payments, they look like they never got to make it back. They said, give me as much money as you can. At the same time, colleges said, well, if you're getting all this money for free and you don't care, then we're going to charge you crazy amounts of money. And student debt just has been skyrocketing. Now it's starting to flatten as students are starting to make payments again. But there's a student loan debt. Once again, now student loan debt is a problem. It's a problem because students, kids took out loans they thought never have to pay back. And the shock of having to pay it back is causing a few ripples through the marketplace. And that is the single biggest driver of delinquencies right now. But let's see the next chart.
Wait, so the red line is the amount of debt, but the blue vertical is the percentage?
No, year-over-year growth rate.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so last year, student loan debt, in the fourth quarter, student loan debt, they added 3% more, total debt to the overall debt, which that's much lower than you saw early in the 2010, 2009, 2010. You can see the actual new student loan levels has really been tapering off.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Yeah, and it's the same thing. U.S. auto loan credit by quarter. Now, here's just how bad this is. By the way, um, when you go, gosh, oh my gosh, outstanding auto, loan balances are the highest they've ever been. Yeah, no kidding. There's 100 million more people driving cars than 10 years ago, and cars are 3 times more expensive. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, and only that, it's irrelevant, which we're going to get to in a minute. But you can see what the outstanding rates are on car loans. It's on the far right axis. So there you go. And I don't actually think credit card debt, mortgage debt, or auto debt is a problem, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Certainly, student loan debt is a problem. But let's you got a question, David. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, this is a revolving credit by quarter. This is, this is just showing us that credit card debt, total debt, aggregate debt is rising. You can see though, David, the blue bars once again suggest how much credit card or how the credit card interest rates are changing. We're now at 20.97% is the average credit card rate in the United States, which is relatively high. It's not. It's a little down from last year. It's down from the peak of 2024, but it's at 20.97%. All right, now let's get to the counter arguments. All right, so we already talked about this is total household debt in trillions, and the total household debt in trillions that includes mortgage debt now stands at $18.8 trillion. That's a 4.1% increase year over year. But what does all that mean? And Dave, let's just say this just in a very simple way. When prices go up, so does the outstanding amount you spend on it, whether you spend cash or debt, right? Just if inflation goes up 5%, you would think debt would go up roughly 5%. But the variable there is income. Because if inflation goes up 5% and your income doesn't go up much more, then your debt's going to rise at a higher rate, right? Because you got to fill the gap of higher prices. But if inflation is 5%, prices go up 5%, but you earn 10% more, your debt doesn't go up. Does that make sense? Or it doesn't go up unless you choose for it to go up? Because you can afford the increase. And that's the argument. We're having this debt because of the distressed economy. But let's go to the next slide because we're going to get to, like I said, the counter argument here. This is my favorite slide, and this is the thing where you now see where you've had a misdirection, where that the entire media has been lying to you. They're using data to lie, and that are to misconceive you, right? To confuse you, and you're thinking the whole sky is falling. And then you see this chart, and you go, "Oh, that's interesting." Total household debt as a percentage of disposable income is the lowest it's ever been in 50 years. Well, how does that jive? How does that jive with all that stuff I just read? Mortgage debt is up, student loan debt is up, credit card debt is up, car debt is up. Well, how can we have the lowest debt to disposable income and almost in history? How can that be? Like in modern history? I don't remember reading that in a headline. And this is so important because if I was talking to a consumer, they're scared. They've heard all the bad news. They're frozen and they're paralyzed, but they think they want to buy a home. I would go through these charts. I know you're hearing about credit card debt. I know you're hearing about household debt. I know you're hearing about this. Well, let me show you this chart. And so just think about it. When did your parents buy a home? Let's say your parents bought a home in 2006. Look how much more of their disposable income they had to spend on that debt. So you're thinking you're having to sacrifice more than your parents? Look at the dang chart. That's not the case. Your parents just made different choices. Anyway, I'm getting into a rant. I'm slowly rolling to the rant stage, David.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
You said one of the misleading data points in this is people are not looking at the average income and the rise of income across the country, and that's being overlooked. But when you look at the average income, or when income rises, what tax bracket group are mostly affected? I would think it would be the lower people on the lower end who are highly affected when minimum wage goes up. But is the income rising for all groups of different income amounts, or is it more weighted by the people who are on the lower end, who are at the minimum wage or slightly above?
This is a really good question, and unfortunately, it's a bit of a complicated question.
Yeah.
It kind of changes by, almost by, by who's leading the country. And so right now, the lower bands of earners are not getting the same tailwind to wages as the top earners. However, at the end of the last decade and into the beginning of the 2020s, the bottom rung wage earners were seeing the highest increases of any of the tranches. So it's shifted a little
Mm,
bit, right? And now we're kind of that K-shaped recovery where the bottom tranche isn't earning as much, but they're still having wage increases, David. And one of our topics I think we're going to talk about next week is we're going to talk about this very thing. We're going to talk about wages, and so I don't want to steal a lot of our thunder, but we're going to look at wages in a whole different bunch of different ways. And I can tell you, in the last 5 years, wages for the average, now we're using the average, for the average worker has gone up 31%. And it has gone,
mm,
and wages have risen faster than inflation in every earning tranche. Now, we're going to actually break it down by, I think, 5 different earner levels. At the bottom level, it's super flat, but we're going to look at that, and the problem is, this is really interesting, Dave. This goes back to vibe. We no longer really care. We don't care so much what our circumstance is. Like, we don't care whether we have enough to eat or whether we have 3 TVs or we have 2 cars. We don't really care about that so much. What we care about is how I compare to you, right? How I compare to my parents, how I compare to people I see on social media. And what we're starting to feel is that we're being left behind. And like everybody else got the golden ticket and we're being left behind. And so now that is really leading us to be dissatisfied, right? And it's not necessarily a true story. Now it is. I do think, by the
mm.
way, there's a huge wealth disparity in America that is going to be a gigantic problem that needs to be solved. I do believe that. And I would sit on a stool and talk to you about that, drinking beers in a tavern for hours. But by and large, people are better off today in every circumstance.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it watching the news.
I know, but you know what? There's a real problem. I mean, it's hard to say. Gosh, they have $5 trillion, and I barely have $100. I'm jealous. I want it. Or my parents own their $1 million house free and clear. I can't buy a house. It must be I
Yeah.
have all unfair. It's like I'm blaming somebody versus trying to figure out what choices I have. And that's what
Right.
this is part of the whole message is, as mortgage and real estate professionals, we have a chance to take somebody by the hand and lead them to make good decisions so they start, building wealth like their parents and grandparents did before them. But we have to get them out of this vibe, this psychology of it. Now, sometimes it's not right to buy a house. I'm not saying we figure out how to get a house for everybody, but it's a big problem. I think we might have one more slide if I remember right. We may or may not. Yep, that's good. Yeah, this is another thing, by the way.
Mm,
You hear, oh my God, 90 we can skip the rest of the slides. I'll just do end on this because the rest of the slides look the same. We have, oh my God, there's more foreclosures, there's more, 60-day lates, there's more 90-day lates, By the way, that's largely nonsense. Largely nonsense. All right, we've gone from one foreclosure in the country to two, so it's doubled. I mean, it's so distorted because it's so historically low. It's not even relevant. Now there is some distress, I think, in the FHA markets. We are starting to see that, the kind of that edge buyer starting to have to struggle and get into late payments, and you got something like 6 or 7% now are in late payments. That is a real problem. Typically 3 to 4% are. So there's something there. Though what's driving these, and this increase in third-party collections, increases in, if we would have gone through all these, delinquency charts, it's student loan debt. We might have the chart, we can skip it, but we went from having zero, bad debt with student loans. It's a straight wall last quarter. It's like 70% now is distressed in just like one quarter. It's like, oh, I got to make payments. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I'm not being political. I'm not blaming them, but that's where all the distress is in the market for the most place. You know,
yeah.
there's a great article. Subprime debt by definition is bad. People with bad credit. Subprime debt is going to have problems, right? If you do, I was reading an article. It's only like 4% of all auto loans are subprime. But not surprisingly, those 4% have a really high failure rate, but that's why they're being charged 30% interest. It's part of the game. They have bad credit. We can't really go, oh my gosh, the subprime debt is going bad. Well, that's what we expect. It's supposed to go bad. Anyway,
That's what
I'm done
subprime
with
is.
that. Yeah, exactly. I'm done with that rant, but it's all part. I want to just keep hammering this point home, David. We have to start using data, and we have to. When people are they have so many inputs, and they're so scared, and they're getting their information in the wrong places. Even when they go where they think the trusted places, they give them nonsense. They give them headlines like, "Oh, the economy's dying. We're at $1.33 trillion credit card debt." Yeah, who cares? We got 350 million Americans now. Stuff's expensive. They're making a lot more money. That's not a relevant point.
You said we've got 350 million now. Has that dramatically changed recently? Haven't we had about 350 million for a long time?
Yeah, population just went up slightly last year for the first time. Because we've had migration out of the country, and that's affected our population growth. And of course, we don't have enough birth rates to replace Americans that are passing away. So every country has a problem with almost every country except for the African countries. African countries have a problem with population. But the whole point is things are more expensive. People make more money. We have more people. Even if we don't have more citizens, we have more people coming of age. So, you're gonna have people with more debt. You're gonna have more credit cards. It's just a factor of life.
Yeah.
The other thing, David,
let's move on to.
One more about keep going this rant. Another thing about the nonsense of this $1.33 trillion is that number is taken at the beginning of the month before payments for credit cards, and something like over half of people with credit cards pay off their balance every month. Right. But that payoff is not included in that number.
Interesting.
Yeah, I could keep around on this, but I won't. But the whole point is we got to go educate. We got to go help people understand this, so that, the road to wealth in the United States is through home ownership. Homeowners are 41 times more wealthier than renters. We can argue forever the benefits of it. I love arguing when I talk to I was going to make some bad statements. I was going to, but argue with, let's say, financial advisors. It's just, it's the road to wealth in America. We got to help people get on that road because it doesn't get easier. And we want them to start getting the compound interest effect sooner,
Hey, McKenna, come on camera real quick. So note for production for next week. You know how we used to have a Ron's rant, a specific Ron's rant section?
Yeah.
So we only had a couple of those, and I'm not suggesting we bring one back, but from a production standpoint, when Ron gets on a rant, we're going to have an overlay in neon lights that drops down after he's been going for a couple minutes and he's on a rant, that a neon sign just starts to flash. Ron's rant.
The best part about that is that I was thinking the exact same thing as he was going on, especially due to the fact that we are now over 8 minutes.
Yeah. I was saying the same thing, by the way. And David, we had to get rid of Ron's rant because I rant on every topic, so it just was redundant.
Yeah. It'll be a neon sign that's on a string that just kind of waves back and forth. Ron's rant.
Perfect.
It's so true. The problem about rants is I can't drink my beer.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our rapid fire topics. First one is builder, spec home, scale back, something like that.
Yeah, a couple of points here. This is a really interesting article, and it was an interview with, I think, the CFO from KB Homes, CFO or COO or something like that. And KB Homes is changing their strategy. They're moving away from spec homes. Spec homes are when builder builds the house and then they sell it to somebody, and they want to get back to build to own or build to order. That is where they actually get the home buyer first. The home buyer actually commits to getting the property. They build a custom home for them. KB Homes used to have 80% of the pipeline was all BTO, and recently it's got down to, and the worst was 30% was BTO. And there was a whole bunch of reasons for that. It had to do with, in the pandemic, they couldn't deliver houses in less than a year. So they couldn't perform long-term locks. They couldn't establish what the input costs were going to be, the carrying costs. They didn't know what the market price should be, over that time. And so they had to just go to building houses and selling them at, just selling them as spec homes. I mean, the builder speculated that was the best option on how to sell the house. But KB Homes is going, no, we're going to go back to build to order, and they want to get to 80% build to order. And so that's a huge shift. The whole market has pretty much done that spec home movement in the last 5 years. And now they're going to start going back to build to order, which is a totally different animal. Then the reason why KB Home wants to do that is because build to order has a higher margin than spec homes. Because when you build a home, you have to sell it. You're going to do whatever you have to do to sell it. And that's why you have people like Leonard take, averaging, 17, 18 points concessions to sell a house because they can't hold on to the house. And KB Homes has a different strategy. They don't want to dip down that margin that far. But also, the guy threw some shade on other builders that are doing, doing interest rate concessions or interest rates buy downs, permanent buy downs. He was really speaking against it. Now, I would argue with him. I'm not going to go into the rant because they're already taking plenty of time. But he said, look, we do price concessions. We don't do interest rate buy downs. But the interesting statistic was that 64% of home buyers buying a single family residence last year got, or the last half of the year had a permanent buy down attached to their home purchase. It's paid for by the builder. That's a lot.
When a builder does a build to order house, I think about my neighborhood. I live in a newish neighborhood, HOA, and there's a lot of consistency on just how the houses look. It's not completely cookie cutter like some neighborhoods are. A decent amount of variety, but at least there's some consistency in it, and I like it. When these builders go down that road, do they open themselves up to building these neighborhoods that are going to have a 200 different styles and all? How many restrictions do they put on their buyers to make sure that there's a consistent feel in the neighborhood?
Yeah, in most large developments, David, you're going to have 3 or 4 floor plans. So you get to pick your 3 or 4 floor plans. So there's not, let's make a deal. It's you get floor plan A, floor plan B, floor plan C, or floor plan D. You get to pick your lot. You pick the floor plan, and then you get to pick your own, your own
Finishes
build.
inside.
Yeah. But you don't. It's not going to be every house is going to look different. I mean, other than
Okay.
which lot do you take, which floor plan, which speaks to what size, and then what are the finishes you
Okay.
want. That it's not custom home like, hey, that's a totally different animal. You know why? Because there's not economy of scale there, right? And so when builders build these houses, they build them, in advance. They order they're built. Let's say it's a 1,500 house community. They order the 1,500 garage doors like 3 years in advance. I mean, like they
Right.
order all the material in advance. And the economy of scale is that it's all the same thing. It's bulk ordering, right? And so you can't just go, no, I'm going to do the foo-foo door. You're like, oh, we don't offer that. And so that's not going to happen. And by the way, a couple of statistics from there. In that article, new homes have been running about 1.2% cheaper than existing homes for comparable properties. And we've seen that trend going for the last quarter or so. That's going to continue because, as you and I were talking about, David, an existing homeowner can choose not to sell their home, but a builder can't choose not to sell their home. They got to sell the home type of thing. And the other thing is that what this guy said was crazy. He said that the direct vertical construction costs were down 6% year over year last year. That materials actually got a lot cheaper, but that's then again, they got highly inflated there during the 2021, 2022 time frame. But that's the topic. Everything to add? Or you want to get racing through this?
Yep. No, I'll just reiterate one thing. I didn't really quite understand until yesterday, until you explained it to me, why new homes are right now cheaper than existing homes. But you taught me on that. A builder they don't have the option to just take it off the market. So yeah, that was great insight. But let's move on. This one is a bit of a random topic.
Hey, David, by the way, just as an interesting thing.
Yep.
You're familiar with builders, and the regional presidents are like kings. They're like kings of their whole territory. Like they're like the CEO. They're like gods inside the company. A big company might have 5 of them or 6 of them or something like that. But that division president or that president, if he misses his sales number for a public company, he could be fired. I mean, missed by 1.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's not a small thing. And we know this is because as lenders, That's why we're on the line to deliver the house. We're going to deliver the mortgage that we promised, because if not, the dude we're working with might get fired. And so
Right.
that just speaks to, there is no choice but for them to sell the house. They're going to sell the house.
Yep.
An existing homeowner doesn't have approach with that same attitude. I'm going to sell at all costs. They just don't approach it the same way.
Yep. Yep. All right. How in the world did you come up with this topic, Ron? Babysitting rates. I guess it speaks to the economy and how well we're doing.
Yeah, well, what it is, David, is that are homes unaffordable, or it's just the cost of living making it unaffordable? And this
Mm.
is this another. I mean, this is just another example that we talk about. We joke about it. Is it the economy, that makes you not be able to afford stuff? Is that you paying $20 for a limousine, to deliver your burrito? I mean, really? But and this isn't the case of that. This is just all the inputs now of our cost of living are crazy, and this is one of them. And so, and the thing is too, this is where I think this is a real critical skill that loan officers need to learn, is that one of the primary things you need to do is start doing budgeting with your clients. Because in order to give them confidence in their decision making, you really have to do some primitive budgeting with them about how they're going to, be able to afford their lifestyle, what their lifestyle needs to look like, and where do they need to make sacrifices, type of thing. Now, this is great, David. And McKenna, I hope you're going to join us on this, because you're going to give us some insights, I expect, because you either sometime in your past babysat for somebody, or know your friends are babysitting, or may have a baby someday, might have to hire a babysitter.
So $26. It doesn't go up much when you add kids to it.
No, 26 is the national average. You pay $26 an hour. So you and your wife want to go to a movie, say for 4 hours, it's like $110 before tip. And if you have 2 kids, it's more. San Francisco, of course, is far more expensive. Seattle, Honolulu, super crazy, right? What do you think about that, McKenna?
I did used to babysit. I used to babysit fairly regularly. I charged $10 an hour.
Wow.
How
So
many years ago?
I was 14, 15, depending on some families that we knew well, even earlier.
So 10-ish
And
years ago.
yeah, I should have jumped on this train way later.
McKenna, I occasionally babysat when I was young, and only as the last resort in the world for a neighbor. Like, they would get the guy out of prison before they asked me. But if they were desperately hard up for a babysitter, they'd beg my parents to let me to go, because I don't want to babysit anybody's kids. I hate that, right? And but it'd have to be a neighbor, somebody who knew, right? You know how much I would typically earn for babysitting for like 6 hours?
How much?
Maybe $5.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
Wow.
awful.
maybe $5.
No,
All right, we got one
but
more
it,
slide.
two
yeah,
more.
we got this. This gets better. We got 2 more, David. I know you're trying to rush this
All right.
along. Flat fees, right? If you just want to do flat fees, daily is $115, overnight $285, 24 hours
Whoa.
$520. Weekend, if you want to go a little, Valentine's weekend, $1,050, and if you want to go for 5 days, 2,600 dinero.
I
I think I might start babysitting.
Yeah,
think it's time for a career change.
yeah. But no, I mean, no
Is
wonder
this
why.
real data?
No, it's real. By the way, it's real data. It is 100% real data, by the way. And there's a lot more data here. We're just skimming off the top of it, quite honestly.
How many hours is considered daily? Is it 8?
I think it's 8. Yeah. By the way, this is published in Urban Sitter. Urban Sitter. There's a magazine for everything. There's a publication for everything. So
Ron, do you have all of your notes printed out on a piece of paper?
I do today.
Ron has like a office grade, commercial grade printer, a couple of them in all of his houses. He
That's
prints
true.
so much stuff.
I print and scan.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But so this is really interesting. Like I said, this goes back to affordability, and you just got to do budgeting. But this next one is what really, David, this is the one. This is crazy, everybody, right? So,
We gotta
okay.
kinda
Gotta move myself.
Oh, you're all right though. But okay, so for mom and dad, they're senile. They need companionship. They need people to run errands. We spend $25, $24 and $26 an hour for them. But for our dog, we're going to spend $24.91. Our dog is more important than our parent, our senior care. Which explain this to me. And then our gardener and our housekeeper, we're going to pay far more for. So like we're just, I mean, we need grandma and granny to die so we get their millions, but we sure as hell aren't going to actually pay a lot for having somebody give them companionship. Like there's a conflict here. If you want to inherit this huge wealth transfer, maybe you need to change your priorities. Any thoughts on that? This is where McKenna gave me the lecture afterwards as being inappropriate.
Yeah,
You're gonna tell me I can't use certain words again?
yeah, we need some media training after this.
What do you guys think about this?
Well, I think about it, and you look at almost $25 an hour for pet care, and if you multiply, if you're working 40 hours a week, that's a decent wage for someone. But people aren't putting in 40 hours a week for pet care, or is that two very different types of pet care? Hiring a friend or someone, an acquaintance, to come to your house versus taking them to a doggy daycare. Are the two costs kind of similar?
I have a good friend who her full-time job was pet care, of going to people's houses whenever they would go out of town, and that was her full-time job, and she was able to live off of that.
Hmm. But then
A lot of people.
you've got travel time. You're not probably spending an entire hour with it with a dog. You take them on a walk and back, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I I wouldn't think that if you're working 40 hours, that's 40 paid hours. If you're just someone with a side hustle that walks, 10 people's dogs, you've got travel time, you've got time, and so on. You're not getting paid for 40 hours, but you do know someone that kind of had their own business, treated as their
Yeah,
own business, and made a livable wage.
she made a livable wage. She would typically live or stay in the person's house and take care of their pets.
Wow.
And
I
so
think
while
it's
the family is
especially common
gone,
for people that travel.
Whose computer are we hearing emails from? Is that you, McKenna?
not me.
It's not me.
I didn't hear anything. I think it's you. I think you're just hearing your own computer.
By the
I
way,
put it on
guys,
do not
as a
disturb.
reminder,
Anyway.
the average per hour for babysitting is $26.24.
I think the thing
No,
that
I feel,
is the most baffling to me is the difference between all of these and senior care.
Yeah, I don't
mhm.
understand why you pay so little. But,
I guess to be
okay,
fair, I didn't read this. It says non-medical.
Non-medical. Yeah,
So
so
that
it's
makes that makes
non-trained.
more that
It's
makes more
not
sense.
nurses or yeah, it's just
Yeah.
someone to like we did that with my dad when he was towards end of life. We had a
but
friend that could show up every day, bring him groceries and that kind of thing, but there was no medical care
dog
assistance
sitting
involved.
is not medical. It's not like they're performing surgery on the dog. I mean, it's still apples to apples.
Yeah,
It's true.
true, true.
Uh, all right. So McKenna, stay on. Let's go to our last topic,
Okay.
or second
We've
last. Our
got
last
two
topic.
more topics.
Well, I know, but our last rapid
Yeah. This one's interesting. Ron, lead the way on this one.
fire. So, in a very lengthy report, I'm talking like it's a Stanford, I think Cambridge or something joint report, 53 pages, small print, just really dense report, super academic. And after all this effort, this deep study, they decided that if people that work from home more, couples that work from home together tend to have more kids in a shocking turn of events. And so let's look at the shocking data here. But there's an anomaly that we're going to try to figure out. We don't care about this. This is just to share people working from home, at least, and they're looking at least one day per week. we should take that out. This next slide is the
Yeah.
bread and butter. Okay, so here it is. Let's say men. If for men, if both the man and the woman work from home at least one day a week, they have 3.1 children compared to 2.35, right? So that is a lot, by the way. That is statistically significant. So that's what the green is. At least both work from home one day a week. The blue is neither work from home one day a week. That makes sense, right? We we don't have to have a PhD. Yes, if married couples are around each other more often, typically, especially if they're of age, they probably have more kids. But the really interesting thing, David, is the pink bar that says if just one person works at home once a week out of the two, that they're going to have more babies. And you first hear that and you go, what the heck is that? Because it's not a statistic of opportunity, right? You don't have more opportunity. And so we were kicking this around the other day, and I'll just let you know, because I'm going to ask you, what do you guys think it is? But I want to let you know that since we talked about this yesterday, I studied it, so I got more insights.
Thank God.
Because it just didn't make any sense. But what do you think that is?
I think it's just a random. We tried to really figure that out yesterday. I think it's just it's never going to be an even number. I think it's just by chance.
But it's a statistically meaningful number, so it's not just chance. It's not like it's 1/10 of a basis point, 1/10 of a percentage. It's like 20 basis points. On the men's side, it's almost 30 basis points. That's a lot. David, that's more than a 10% difference. That's not statistically insignificant. So yesterday, I was speculating,
Okay.
well, maybe if one person stays home, they get to do more chores and take care of the kids, so they don't have to do as many of that things when the other spouse gets home. And so there's more energy and more time to have alone time or whatever, right? That's what we were speculating yesterday. You know what it is? You know what the report said? This very long.
Before you say it, so more kids are had when the man works from home, right?
More kids are had if just one in the couple. No, yeah, if the man works from home, they have more kids.
As
If
opposed
just the man
to
works.
just the woman.
Same thing
working
as the
from
woman,
home.
but it's more statistically important if the man does.
Right. Okay, let's hear it. Why?
You know what the report is? It all has to do with
Let's hear it.
fertility treatments. It's about fertility, about treatments and the things you have to do for fertility. And if you're at home or have freedom to go to doctor's appointments, you're going to be more successful in getting it done.
I don't understand that.
What?
Well, I don't know
when there's usually fertility treatments, it's usually, I would think it's the woman that needs more fertility treatments, right?
But yes, but that's not necessarily the case, David, today.
Okay.
But fertility is a whole bunch of things. David, it's everything from harvesting, and it's from different. There's a whole lengthy process. It depends on where the problem lies, right? But that's what the study said. But because and all that speaks to is how many people go through some sort of, some sort of treatment. The thing is, there's a lot of people in our society today that get fertility treatment, and that it actually is more successful the more time you get to spend at home. And I would have never known that.
Hey,
That's old man didn't know it.
We've got some people watching online. Drop a comment if you have any insight as to why when the man works from home versus the woman works from home, there are more kids that are birthed when it's the man that works from home. Any insights on that? Because I don't know. This sounds crazy.
Yeah.
What the hell does this have to do with mortgages or housing?
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. We got to throw one in there that has nothing to do with it. You could argue though that the number of people in a household actually drives household formation and need. So as you have more babies, you need a bigger house. You're going to be a little bit more mobile.
Yeah.
You could argue, but I'm not even trying to argue that. It's just a weird, it's just a weird deck. Oh All right. You guys got anything else you want to kick around with this?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah. No, we all work from home quite a bit. Have you seen any changes?
I was waiting for a follow-up to that. Ron, you and I are past the age of child rearing.
Yeah, but we're
No
not past the age
comment.
of trying.
Can we move on to the next topic? All right, let's do it. McKenna, move us along.
Oh yeah, I forgot we had this dumb topic. We'll be really quickly here. This really, the original headline was Americans that work more earn more, and that's true. And that was like I wonder how much we spent on that study. But then somehow the bigger topic came that the more you actually sit at work, typically results in the more you actually get paid. Now, I thought it was pretty interesting until once you kind of dug into the data, and the reason why is high earning occupations like attorney, CPA, they earn a lot of money. They sit all the time. Where low earning occupations, say like the cashier at McDonald's, they stand 98% of the time. So when you look at it from that lens, it makes sense. But we do have a chart here that's kind of interesting. Another counterintuitive chart. As you can see, over the past 10 years, people now are sitting considerably more at work than they did 10 years ago. Matter of fact, people today spend 44.9% of their time sitting at work. It was only 39% of their time in 2016. And part of the question goes, well, what the hell happened with the whole sit-stand desk phenomenon? I mean, apparently that concept has failed because the more stand desks we have, the more we just sit down. Much just exhaust us. But anyway, that's any insights on that, McKenna? You got any? This is a safe topic. You can come back on. I won't make any snarky comments.
I mean, I don't really have many comments other than the fact that on one sense it seems like, oh, like that's kind of messed up. The people that are standing up all the time, they make less, but then of course that comes into a need for higher education. I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass right now. I don't really have anything.
David, thoughts?
Nah, I don't think that's a surprising study at all. I don't think I'm surprised. People that, although it is interesting because typically speaking, if you look over the last, people who have used their minds have always been paid more over those who have manual labor jobs. However, we do see a shift happening with the with AI coming about, because AI is replacing those people's minds, and now there's a drastic shortage of trade jobs, of electricians, of plumbers, and so I think if you look at those numbers 5 years from now, even 2 years from now, it's going to be different. I think the people that are going to be standing more are probably going to get paid more, because the people that are sitting at their desks all day are going to get replaced by AI.
I completely agree with that. I think that we might be at peak sitting value.
Yep.
Yeah, good point. But I am disappointed on the stand desk, apparent impact on standing at work.
All right, let's get to our last section. And Ron, we've got a bumper video, and we've got an AI tip of the week. So roll the bumper video. All right. Ron,
David,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't use AI much for design stuff, because you take Will Smith eating spaghetti, I still feel like I can produce maybe not better art, but more relevant, more consistent, and that kind of stuff when I do it myself. So I've never used AI to build out presentations, but I was very impressed when my family visited and stayed at your house over the Kentucky Derby, and you generated an entire how to bet presentation using AI. I was very impressed. So if you want to learn how to use AI to help you build out a Kentucky Derby how to bet presentation, Ron is your guy. So lead the way.
Thank you, David. You know what? Actually, it's so interesting because PowerPoint presentations is something that AI has been really bad at, and mainly because it's a multidiscipline skill. It's not only extracting content, and it's copywriting, and then it's graphic design, and it's presentation, and it's been really bad at it. And so, and it's such a rich market that there's all sorts of companies chasing it. And there's a whole bunch of good companies that are good at it now. And we can list the 15 leading companies. But what I found interesting, if we go to the next slide, or our first slide on this topic, is that it's now become super easy because PowerPoint has an add-on from Claude, and it's super easy. You open up your PowerPoint software, and you go to the sidebar, and you select Opus 4.6 as the model in your sidebar, and then you just upload your data. It could be an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, it could be anything, and then you just give it a few prompts, and then I can create a beautiful, comprehensive PowerPoint in just a couple of minutes. And so we've gone from this being something that AI couldn't do, and now that, and then it went to only specialized AI tools could do it, to now starting to be super common.
Yeah. And I think it was last week where we talked about, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago, all the different AI tools that are, or all the different AI tools and what their specialties are. Like use Claude for this, use ChatGPT for that. I think that was last week. So if you're interested in that, go back a week ago, possibly 2 weeks. And on our YouTube videos, we've got the chapter markers in there, so you can actually, if you scroll along the progress bar, you can actually see what we're talking about in each section. So there you go.
Yeah. And like I said, there are specialty companies that do PowerPoint, especially AI tools. But to have it now kind of mainstream and organic inside your other tools is going to be a game changer. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna work on a PowerPoint, David, this afternoon. It's the first time I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use that very same thing. I'm gonna see how it works. I'll let you know.
What's the PowerPoint going to be on?
I'll be doing a cooking demonstration. No, I'm working on a project. But I'm looking forward to doing it. So I'll report next week how it is.
Sounds good. All right, Ron. Had fun today. As always, maybe we should consider doing Fridays instead of Thursdays.
Maybe.
Friday seems more appropriate for us to be doing happy hour, but that was fun. Cheers to you. Well, we begin with a cheers. We'll end with a cheers. So cheers. McKenna, cheers. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. If you joined us, we appreciate it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. All right. See you next week.
Don't forget to let us know if you're a man at home while you're having more babies.
See you next week.